In the 1950s, a global struggle between communist and non-communist powers arose. On October 1st, 1950, the United States initiated the Korean Civil War with a massive invasion across the 38th parallel at Yalu River. After North Korean leader Kim Il-sung's frantic appeals to Chairman Mao for Chinese intervention, China decided to step in. The PLA crossed the Yalu River on October 19, 1952, and launched the first phase offensive on October 25th through attacking advancing UN forces near the Sino-Korean border. This piece, The Revelation, illustrates the interpersonal struggles between three Chinese siblings during the Korean War. In the face of war, their undying patriotism is tested against the meaning of familial bonds and the realities of war.
That night, the scent of blood pervaded the air. The horizon fainted from its fervent red as the smoke arose. From distance, the rotor blades of an American Bell H-13 Sioux arrived at a subtle stop. The last cartridge hit the ground as its master collapsed upon the reflection of his own scope. Lost between the divide of realities and hallucinations, I looked around. Beside me laid a bruised arm. A pair of frail hands grasped onto a pendant, in the interior a black and white picture of a woman. The woman was in her mid-20s, a beautiful smile across her face as she poses in a gown. At a closer look, the woman seemed familiar. I scurried through the corpse and brushed the dirt off its face. Streams of blood were stained on a deformed face, but his hands still grasping onto the pendant, firm on his chest. A pulse of adrenaline rushed through my arteries as wisps of memories punctured the depths of the brain. And then it all made sense. I lost control. My hands twitched as surges of tears trickled down my petrified face. I looked at both hands now, frail and empty. The atmosphere dissipated as I suffocated upon the intolerable truth. More memories punctured my brain. Tears blurred the vision in front of me. The surroundings all became silent except the faint cries of my aching heart. From a distance, I saw two men standing in the midst of a sea of corpses. One man had a Budanovka on top of a familiar face. The other handed a file to him as a smile appeared on his face. On the file imprinted two bolded letters, U.S. Then I collapsed upon an immense burden of scrambled emotions. The last event I remembered was the back of the man, a Budanovka on top of a familiar face, disappear into the shadows as he trampled across a sea of corpses. That night, I dreamt of and mourned the death of my eldest brother. I felt warm and comfortable. The surface beneath me was soft, different from the brutal grounds of the Yalu River. Then I opened my blistered eyes. "Damn it," I muttered as a sharp gleam of light pierced through. In front of me was an unfamiliar view. There was a red banner with the phrase, "Resist America, Aid Korea." Beside me stood a table embellished with a vase of white daisies and a window concealed behind a curtain.
Where am I? Where are the fallen comrades?
I murmured as my heart raced in confusion and fear. Desperate for an explanation, I tore the curtain off the window in frustration and looked outside. Across the field was a signboard written, Jiling 9th People's Hospital of the People's Republic of China. Then I looked beneath me. I wore a white hospital patient cloth rather than an armed uniform of the PLA. Before I could cleanse the confusion, a man walked into the room.
"Good afternoon, Comrade Lee,"
a well-suited doctor uttered.
"How am I in the Jiling 9th People's Hospital? Where are the other comrades? Did we defeat these American imperialists?"
I asked in a hurried manner.
"Comrade Lee, I understand that the confusion and fear may be boiling with amnesia, but please calm down,"
the doctor replied. He continued,
Last night, our team of paramedics scavenged the Yalu after the 5th Division of the PLA lost the battle against the United States. You were one of the 2 survivors of the massacre. Who was the other survivor?
I inquired.
Brandon Lee, the commander of the 5th Division of PLA. Now, I shall be dismissed as Commander Lee asked for a private conversation with you.
I was left in shock in the repercussions of war. Then came 3 knocks on the door.
Come in,
I said. At the door stood a charismatic man with broad shoulders and an authoritative stance. He wore a commander uniform of the PLA with a Budanovka on his head and a pistol in his side pocket.
Brother?
I cried as tears trickled down my confounded face.
I was worried.
I proclaimed in tears as he embraced me with the love of brotherhood.
After all, I cannot bear the death of another brother. Perhaps the commander has been heard about the death of John Lee, our eldest brother?
I looked at him and asked. I was elated about the survival of Brandon, but downhearted for the death of another. His face faded from happiness and dimmed with sorrow. An eerie silence broke out. As his hands started to sweat, I reiterated,
Has the commander heard about the death of our eldest brother? Of course I have.
His arms trembled as he responded in a hesitant voice. I was confused at his abnormal reaction to John's death and asked,
Brandon, is all well?
Then silence broke out once again as he avoided direct contact with me. Unable to comprehend his reluctance, I asked,
Brother, what's the matter? Nothing. I was just attempting to understand what happened to John that has led to his death.
Brandon responded. To alleviate his distress, I said in a compassionate manner,
We are both despaired at John, our eldest brother's death. However, people will die at some point in their lives. John died as a hero, and we should honor his sacrifice to our nation and our paramount leader Mao. Jason, I hope there will be honor in our eldest brother's death too. I must return to the PLA base now. But here is the pendant the paramedics found at the battlefield.
Brandon responded as he placed it beside me. As Brandon left the room with a Budanovka on his head, a familiar scene struck the mind. Memories of events that happened seconds before the emotional breakdown at the battlefield re-emerged. His back looked familiar, similar to the back of the man that night who disappeared into the night across the sea of corpses. Brandon looked like the man with the sinister smile as he received a file with 2 bolded letters, U.S. I didn't believe the suspicions of Brandon that overwhelmed me. However, his back looked too familiar to the man with the file. That night, I forced an overwhelmed mind to sleep. The next morning, I crept into Brandon's office at the PLA base in search for answers. I inspected his entire room, the desk, the drawers, but there was no evidence of the file. I sighed at the feeling of relief until I found the slightest hint under his desk. I pulled the folder, hidden under piles of dust, out from the bottom of the desk. Inside the folder was a file. And there it was, the file with 2 bolded letters, U.S. All of a sudden, adrenaline rushed through my arteries as the heart raced. Then came 3 knocks on the door.
Jason, please return that file to me.
Brandon pleaded as he entered the room.
No, I will not concede to an undercover agent for the United States.
I responded as my heart throbbed in revelation. Brandon spoke as he approached me at a stable pace.
Jason, I'm not an undercover agent for the United States. Now, return that file to me.
In defense, I pulled out a pistol and fixed my fingers on the trigger.
Do not move, Brandon. Let me hand the file to the central government.
I said in a trembling voice. He responded in a calm manner.
Brother, trust me. I am not an undercover agent for the United States. Brother, what has our nation and I done? How can the act of depriving the life of our eldest brother be justified?
I asked, as surges of tears rushed in. However, Brandon continued to approach me. He spread his arms and prepared to embrace me. Unable to react under fear, I closed my eyes and pulled the trigger 3 times. Then came the bullets that ended his life. 2 decades later, I sat on the couch and picked up the newspaper. On the headline was a bolded phrase, John Lee, undercover agent for the United States in the Korean War, executed at a public trial. Beside me laid a letter.
Comrade Jason Lee. Before the death of me and the rise of our new government, I must unravel the truth. That night, John Lee did not die in battle. He escaped from the battlefield and left the US file, hence has been suspected as an undercover agent for the United States. On the same night, the commander, Brandon Lee, found the US file and was assigned to investigate the case. The commander couldn't believe that John was an undercover agent for the United States at first, but then he has forced us to hide the truth from you. Comrade Jason Lee, the commander loved you very much. May there be peace in your soul. Sincerely, Dr. Chen at the Jinlin 9th People's Hospital.
And then I cried and picked up the pistol.